I'm Brandon Miller, and you are listening to Coach. This weekly series dives deep into the world of Clifton strengths and how they impact your daily life. Hear from certified strengths coaches on the ins and outs, quirks, and characteristics of all 34 strengths and 4 domains and how they play out in real life. Let's get started. Hello and welcome back to Season 2 of the Strengths Whisperer, Coach to Coach. Today, all the way from Manila, I have Elmo Alforque joining me, and we are going to talk about Analytical. Elmo, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I'm good. How about you, Brandon?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well. And so, Elmo, you're a Better Up coach. You do work with management strategies. You're coaching emerging leaders, so individual contributors looking to become, whether a management role or some sort of leadership role. Elmo, tell us, you could have picked any modality to coach, but you chose strengths. Tell us about your journey.
Right. So I first got introduced into Clifton Strengths back in 2004. My organization sent us to Italy. Would you believe it? Then it was Gallup University that did a 2-day workshop because we wanted to implement an engagement Q12, the engagement survey. And part of it is strengths, discovering what you're good at, because studies have shown that when you're engaged, you lean on your strengths. So that started my journey 20 years ago. And I became a certified coach back in 2017. And that's started my journey into coaching. And so today I'm a certified ICF professional coach, and I'm coaching at Better Up as well as with management strategies.
Very good. And also people can find you on LinkedIn.
That's right.
Elmo Alforque. And if you are an emerging leader, someone looking to grow and you want a great coach, Elmo is the right person for you. Elmo Analytical. So today we're diving into the wonderful world of Analytical. On some of these coach to coach sessions, I am well in the know. They are strengths that I operate in, I use regularly. And then there are the sessions where I am not in the know, strengths that I do not use regularly. This is one of those sessions where I am eager and our listeners are eager to hear from you, talk about this strength and tell them the powerful ways this can show up and be a benefit to any situation it finds itself in. So could you just give us the overview of the analytical strength?
Sure. So my top 5 is actually responsibility, analytical, connectedness, maximizer, and individualization. However, out of my 5, my favorite theme has always been analytical. I like numbers. I like to make sense of things. I like to find the connection, whether it's data or situations. So I'm able to better navigate through a particular situation.
Very good. So when we think about this strength, it's often associated with logic, data analysis. It does comparison. It looks for fact over feeling is something that I've heard described with the analytical strength. When you think about your journey, so you saw this show up on your strengths report, you're number 2 analytical. So that's pretty strong. And you say, gosh, this is one I really relate to. What are some ways that it has supported success in your work?
Well, one is I like data-driven decisions. So I always look for evidence before I make a decision. Like, what's the data behind that? So I'm a data person. That also helps me in the role that I play as a lead researcher because I like facts. I particularly like the equation of you start with talent, you multiply it with investment, gaining skills, so it becomes a strength. Another equation that I like is coming from Michael McQuart, who is one of the leaders in action learning, where he says learning is equal to P times Q, where P is program knowledge and Q is questioning insight. And this is where analytical helps me in my coaching practice because it's in the ability to ask questions, to amplify the knowledge and turn it into learning. That's why one of the key things when I'm doing coaching is that I always spend time with my client to have some space for reflection so that they can deepen the learning, expand their awareness, and be able to arrive at actionable insights.
I work with some team members who are high in analytical, and the questioning, the reasoning, and the discovery process is very important to them. So the scientific model of having a hypothesis and then testing those theories and then making sure that before we arrive at our conclusion and submit our data, that we have validated our results. So it's not just the qualitative results, things that we feel or believe, but it's quantitative. It's been actualized. We can see that these are in relationship. We can have a causal inference. We can find one produce the other, and I find that this is a really important strength on any team that is wanting to make really well informed decisions and have verified data. When you're coaching someone who has strong analytical, what are some ways that you help them to advance this? You shared with us the equation that comes through Tom Rath's work in StrengthsFinder 2.0: talent times an investment, increasing our skill, increasing our knowledge, practice. The investment of resources is where we get a strength, near flawless or consistently near perfect performance. So repeated success, so to speak. So if you're coaching someone with high analytical, what are some ways that you might support them to really advance this particular strength?
Well, for one, since analytical is part of that strategic thinking domain, and we all know that in the strategic thinking domain, people want space to process information. And analytical is one of my favorite strengths. At the same time, it's my kryptonite. It's and then I share this with people that I coach because you need to be aware that this particular strength can be blocking your way, could be a roadblock for your success. Wherein if you there's a term called analysis paralysis, wherein you just keep on that space of thinking without action, right? And then that basically nullifies that strength because then by the time that you arrive in making a decision, it might be too late. And so helping people understand both the power and the danger if you overuse or you're always in this zone wherein I like what I've learned in Gallup wherein you need to dial this down and take a look at your other strengths to be at play so that you're able to have a balance, kind of looking at what strengths to play for the right moment.
That's good. When we think about an analytical team member, and so sometimes an analytical can find themselves as a lone voice on a team. They are the ones who are holding back advancing because they can see where we have missteps in our analysis. And then I have heard that phrase applied, analysis paralysis, but I think I've heard it applied premature. It's not that the analytical team member is slowing for the sake of just giving more time. It's really to ensure accuracy. It's to ensure that we haven't missed a vital statistic or a study, and where we're wanting more opportunity to study the data. And I have found that advocating for these team members can be really important. Now, in other cases, there might be a team of many analyticals, and I could think of industries here, right, where you're going to have many of them in a laboratory environment where this is we're pooling that strength. It's valued, it's prized. It's almost it's a prerequisite in some cases. But I want to ask you that. So let's say you're working with a team or someone trying to understand how to maximize the opportunity for an analytical and to help others understand that way of processing.
Right. So my background is in tech. And so this particular strength really played well when we are tackling a big issue or we're wrapping our minds into new technology. One of the things that I've learned over the years is that in order for you to help drive innovation, is you have to have milestones in place, or you play in a sandbox, you experiment, but there is a time or a specific timeline where you experiment and then make a decision. So you allow that space, but it's a controlled space. It's not unlimited use of that strength. There needs to be a conscious, time bound element to it in order for it to be effective.
I really appreciate the time bound aspect of that. I think it does provide some structure. It does give some clarity to your analytical team members as well as your team members who are perhaps inclined to move things along quicker. So their version of even inside of that domain, right? Because when we think about strategic thinking domain, the ideation, for example, has a very different approach to its research, its development, its experimental, its comfort with the unknown, its comfort with experimenting, and their partnership with an analytical is, well, now let's turn this into a repeated process that we can support. And I'm glad you mentioned tech because of all the places that I have met many, many with this strength, both on the sciences side of people we work with, but technical. And so sometimes people with high analytical, they may have some challenges on the people side, on the relationship side. And so when you're coaching someone with high analytical and you're helping them to understand how to be a good team member to others, especially I imagine when you're coaching emerging leaders and you're helping them to recognize performance is premium. You need to perform and do your work excellently. And you also need to be able to work with people and you have to advance. What are some ways that you support people with analytical as they're developing their skills and their ability to work with and lead people?
Well, one of the things that I do is I redirect that energy and strength towards people. You analyze situation, data, and events. Do the same with people. And how best can you interact with them? Analyze the communication styles, analyze deeper, and just like breaking down a big machine into different smaller pieces, do the same, and then find your way in terms of if you find difficulty in a particular relationship, then put your analytical hat on and take a look at that situation, break it down so that then it's more like sense making in a way, make sense of this particular unknown so that you get more comfortable in dealing with it.
That's good. Almost to recognize that the team members and their expressions and decision making, where some will lean into emotion over logic. And in and of itself, there's probably a pattern in how they do that. There's very likely a way that your team members process data through their emotions that one with analytical can come to predict, because the predictive analysis capabilities of a high analytical is their advantage. It's their edge. It's a distinction that they can apply. And I have found with some that when they can move back from perhaps what might either be unknown or a frustration point because it's not relatable to their processing preferences, their way of arriving at an answer, they can begin to see the power of those partnerships. Your ability to assess the people and through your intuition and through how you arrive at those conclusions, my analysis through the data, the science, the facts, where we want to experiment, prove, validate, this is actually very complementary. Have you found in your work, just thinking about your own experience, so let's just come back to you, you have strengths that allow you to think people and also think data and science, which for someone in tech, I imagine that served you very well because you could do both. And that's a real advantage for you in your career when you're supporting this with emerging leaders, one that you're finding they're just getting stuck. They're getting stuck. Because I used to say it this way, Elmo, that when I work with analyticals, I have to remind them it's very likely that you're going to walk into a room and be the smartest person in the room, IQ. But it's also likely that you're going to walk into a room and you might have less EQ. You might have less emotional intelligence than others in the room. So if you only think IQ and you're not resonating EQ, then you have a gap similar to someone you're working with who might have EQ, less IQ. They say that IQ is static. We have a level that we can achieve, but it's very unlikely that we go beyond. It's very unlikely that I could work really, really hard and have a brain like Einstein. Very unlikely. It probably not possible. However, I could have the EQ of a very admired leader, someone who has achieved tremendous results. I can keep growing this. And so I'm curious for, your work or your own journey, just how you've learned to think about both sides of development and growth for leaders.
So as I leaned into my analytical strength, it allows me to look for the right framework to use to guide me. And so there's a lot of frameworks that can help leaders be effective in creating high performing teams. One of what I really like is the framework that Gallup has done in terms of the 5 coaching conversations that managers need to have with their direct reports. And this allows them to, particularly the first conversation, which is setting role and expectation. It's very important and key to set expectations because that would help you build relationship, find connection, and make sure you stay on the right lane. And so being analytical, use that to adopt a framework that works. Look for templates that can lead you for success. Look at your own experiences where you gained success and use that as a template so that it's repeatable, scalable, and you can continuously apply, at the same time as you invest in that particular talent, then it becomes a stronger muscle or a stronger strength that then allows you to achieve higher level of excellence.
This is Elmo Alforque, and he can be found on LinkedIn, Alforque, if you're looking for Elmo, all the way from Manila. And you have a thriving coaching community there in Manila and throughout the Philippines. It's so encouraging when I see all of the activity happening that you all are doing there. You and I have talked fondly of one day coming to see each other there. Listeners don't know, but my wife was born in Manila. So we've talked about a reunion back there at some point one day. Elmo, as I'm wrapping up our time today, we have a resource for our listeners, and it is a document that we call How to Be a Good Teammate to Me. And I would share with you listeners that this is a particular strength that some have found very helpful insight into understanding what your analytical team member contributes and also understanding what they need. Every strength brings something specific, but also needs something to be most effective. Elmo, I'm going to read some of the needs. And as our expert analytical today, I want you to share how you relate to some of these. So number one, a need for the analytical strength is time to do the work, time to do the analysis. That sounds like it would resonate almost with any analytical. If you want a good answer to a query, if you want them to evaluate, you need to give them enough time. Would that be accurate?
Absolutely. As I mentioned, since analytical is part of that strategic domain, people dominant in this trend need space to process information.
Number two, permission to ask questions. I add to this one permission to challenge assertions, permission to shoot down ideas. We all agree on one thing, and the analytical can be the one who raises their hand and says, we haven't thought of this, or this. That is your analysis is inconclusive. This is based on conjecture, not fact. We need more work here. I think this is a need of this strength. Would you agree?
Absolutely. People dominant in the analytical theme are data driven. They would always look for the story behind the numbers that you are telling us.
That's right. Here's another one. Pragmatic, calm, rational, logical conversation. I have found with my analytical colleagues that debate can have a spirited tone, but they're not going to debate, say, as an influencer might. They're going to debate more in a rational, calm, let's evaluate numbers. We can have tension. We can have disagreement. In fact, analytical seems to be comfortable in disagreement because that's how we're going to get to an outcome. But calm is key. Have you found that to be true for you as well?
Absolutely. Analytical persons that are dominant in the analytical theme, they're very practical. They want to translate that conceptual thinking into actionable steps.
Very good. Very good. Last one. A chance to explore the data deeply. Take the time it takes to go to new depths of discovery. Does that resonate for you, Elmo?
Absolutely. And this is also one of the pitfalls of a person dominant in analytical, because we also like to spend time just digging deeper, and we can dig deeper as much as we want. And that's where the analysis paralysis come into play.
And I find that you're right. I have actually heard leaders say, I have to give a time bank to this team member or this team, because if they know they have a time bank, then they know that they are expected at some point to, not pursue every path, to pursue all the ones they can. And if they come back with a logical reason why they need more time, then it can be decided then. But at some point, we must reach a conclusion.
Absolutely.
Very good. Elmo, I really appreciate you joining us today and representing the analytical strength, and give high regard to all of our friends there in the Philippines and your strengths movement, your thriving strengths movement that you have. Just for one more time, Elmo, can you tell our listeners where they can find you and what you are up to?
So they can find me at LinkedIn, Elmo Alforque. And at this point, I'm exploring AI and artificial intelligence, particularly generative AI, on how it would impact, how it will disrupt, or is disrupting our workplace today, and how people can navigate through this disruption.
Very good. You heard it here. If you'd like to connect with Elmo, please find him on LinkedIn. And if you're interested in getting the resource, How to Be a Good Team Member to Me, please reach out to Brandon at 34strong.com. We'd be happy to send you a copy of this resource that you could use either as a coach or with your team. As always, we want to thank you for joining us. Season 2, The Strengths Whisperer, Coach to Coach. And until we see you again, stay strong, my friends.
Thank you for tuning in to the Strengths Whisperer Coach to Coach. Please feel free to reach out to Brandon to partner with 34 Strong for collaboration opportunities to serve your employees or clients together. If you are a strengths coach, lead a strengths-based team, or are a fan of strength, we invite you to receive our complimentary resource, How to Be a Good Teammate to Me, Understanding My Contributions and Needs. Email Brandon_Miller at 34strong.com to connect, and he will gladly share this resource that will continue to unlock the power of strength.